Just yesterday, Microsoft came out and they announced two new Xbox handheld consoles. And they put these out to compete with the Steam Deck. And besides those two Xbox handhelds, there is the Nintendo Switch 2 that also recently came out. So I figured I'd take this opportunity to talk a little bit about video games on this channel. And video games are something I engaged with in the past. They might even be something I engage with in the future. But for the last long while now, I haven't been playing any video games at all. And is this because video games are inherently sinful? Are they wrong from a Christian point of view? Well, if we look at Paul's epistles, Paul says that all things are lawful, but not all things are edifying. And what he means by that is for things that aren't inherently sinful, whether it's entertainment, watching movies, playing video games, eating food, certain types of food, engaging in drinking, none of these things by themselves are inherently sinful. But just because they're not sinful doesn't mean they're edifying. And so, whether or not to engage in these things really depends on the context of life that you're in, and whether or not that specific movie or that specific piece of media or that specific video game has any elements to it that might cause you to sin. So, me personally, when I was in college, I loved to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning before anybody else. And I would meal prep. I'd meal prep my 6 meals a day because I was really into lifting. And I would be in the gym by 6 a.m., right when it opened. And I loved this lifestyle and I engaged in it. And right now, even in my life, I wake up at 4 a.m. and I go to sleep at 8 p.m. I like the grind. I'm very type A. I like maximizing my overall performance. Anything at all that even a little bit might lower my energy, might lower my mental clarity, might make me less sharp or less productive are things I have absolutely no tolerance for whatsoever. Whether that's video games, whether that's drinking, I don't allow myself to have even a single drop of alcohol ever. But that's a personal conviction. It's not because drinking alcohol, having a glass of wine with your dinner every once in a while is inherently sinful. It's because I personally, myself, as a human being, have no interest at all in lowering my output, my performance. I want to have my body and my mind be this very well oiled machine. I want to be a workhorse because I like to live that way. But this is a personal conviction. This isn't something that everyone has to do. The Bible, while the Bible does emphasize hard work, while the Bible does emphasize the importance of taking on the responsibilities in our life, the Bible isn't so type A as I am. It doesn't say everyone has to be as type A as I am. I also don't even eat any oil at all, not a single drop of oil. Forbidden. Why? Because every time I eat oil, my digestion gets slower. I start to feel a little bit lethargic. I don't sleep as well. My digestion isn't as good. I don't feel as healthy. I don't feel as mentally sharp. So I don't have oil, none, zero, not a drop with any of my food ever. Does the Bible say that it's sinful for you to eat oil? No, it doesn't say it's sinful for you to eat oil. But I personally don't like it. I have my own personal convictions. And Paul even writes also in the epistles. He says sometimes you might run into people who might have personal convictions for things that they want to eat or not eat that are lawful for you, but it goes against their conscience. And that's okay. And so in Christianity, there is that flexibility for different personality types. And while I've found for myself that video games don't make me more mentally sharp, they don't add any energy to me, they don't help me be more productive, to have more output. While I found this to be the case for my life, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the case for everyone. Some people might want to come home from school or from work, and they might want to connect with their friends, and they might want to get on Discord, and they might want to reset their mind so that they're prepared to take on the day tomorrow, or they find this to be a social activity, or they find this to be something that brings joy in their lives, or at least entertainment in their lives in moderation, as Paul says. all things are lawful, but not all things are edifying. So it it can be edifying in some contexts. Now, of course, if it exists in a context that causes you to sin, if, for example, there's overly sexual content in the video game, or the video game causes you to tilt and start yelling at your friends over Discord or whatever, and starts saying obscenities at them, then this is obviously bad. And then if that is the case, you kind of have to re-examine your relationship with these things and ask, is this something that's really adding something to my life? Or is it something that is causing me to stumble? And that's also another one of the reasons why I personally don't like to play video games or drink alcohol or eat oil or even sleep past 8 p.m. Nothing good happens past 8 p.m. Usually past 8 p.m., this is when people's discipline starts to decrease. This is when people start to get more irritable. This is when people start to get more emotional. From my own personal experience, I love to be asleep before all of the silly stuff that people start engaging with at night. But this is a personal conviction. It's absolutely a personal conviction. And I like to be up early to get momentum in my day before anyone else is even up. And this is something that I find fulfillment in, because me personally, I find fulfillment more fun than fun. I don't even find fun. I don't find video games fun anymore at all. Why? Because working on things in my real life, lifting consistently, or even working on this channel, for example, as examples, are things that I find a lot more fun than fun. Even if you examine video games themselves, take a video game, a very popular video game like Dark Souls. Dark Souls, moment to moment, isn't fun, especially your first time playing it, because it has a lot of frustration in it, a lot of difficulty. Take any of the popular video games, Call of Duty, League of Legends. These games oftentimes are frustrating and annoying as much as they are fun. And the reason why a game like Dark Souls is so fun is not because it's fun, but it's because it's fulfilling, at least within the context of Dark Souls. Because if you go ahead in a game like Dark Souls and you confront the boss, it might take you 20, 30, 40, 50 tries to take down the boss. And so for 49 attempts, you're frustrated. But on that very last one, that's when you get your sense of fulfillment. So that sense of fulfillment comes from the achievement. But why would I spend all of that energy and time to gain an achievement in a virtual world when I can put in just as much energy and time to get that achievement in real life? Now, where I have found video games to have a bit more utility is in their social aspect, where maybe you have a friend from high school that you haven't been able to see for a while. Maybe they live in a different state now. And so one way you guys can come together and get together is by engaging in an online game together. In these sort of ways, I found them to have a bit more utility. But especially if you're playing with strangers or you're playing solo, why? Personally, again, this is all my personal musings. So why? I found no good reason to go ahead and engage in that. And I don't want to be sitting there and thinking to myself, oh, well, this one has more sexual content than this one, and this one maybe it gets me a little bit mad, but this one doesn't. I don't have time for that. It's the same thing with alcohol. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I even have to be thinking about moderation. I don't want to have one and be like, how do I feel? Would it be appropriate for me to have a second one? I don't have time for any of this. I don't want to. It's so much better for me to just say, not a drop. Not a drop of alcohol, not a drop of oil, and not a moment of video games. Now, if I'm out, let's say with people in real life and they're playing Smash Bros in real life and it's a social activity in real life, then yeah, sure, maybe I'll go and I'll join them. Maybe. I'm not very good at Smash Bros, but maybe, right? But outside of that context, personally, I haven't found any edification in my life right now for video games. Now, there's also the argument to be made that, oh, sometimes they're artful, right? Sometimes the story has some meaningful undertones to it. And from my own personal experience, that's never really been the case. No video game has been able to compare to the sort of storytelling in something like Lord of the Rings, the novels as well as the movies, or anything written by Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, or of course, obviously, the biblical stories. No video game has come close. And I think what's also happened is that video games back in the day, they were really stigmatized. I remember being about 10 years old and it was summer break. And I woke up and I went down to the family computer during summer break. And at this time, I played a game called The Maple Story. And at this time, also, my brothers were toddlers. And one of my brothers, he came up to me and he looked at the computer screen and he saw that I was playing this video game on the computer screen. And he was interested because, there were flashy colors. And so I grabbed him and I put him on my lap. But also during this time, my brother's speech therapist was around because they were getting speech therapy. And so the speech therapist came and she grabbed my toddler brother off my lap, off my 10-year-old lap, and then she looked at me with disdain. And she said to my brother, who was a toddler, "You're not gonna be a Game Boy like him." So there was this huge stigma around video games, or only dweebs or nerds or people who had no life played video games, especially because during this time, here I'm gonna kind of reveal my age a little bit. During this time, World of Warcraft became popular and MMOs were popular, and there were these huge time sinks and they were really grindy. And video games really targeted one core demographic, and that was the demographic of young boys and men. And so all the video games reflected that. You had Halo, you had the early Call of Duties, Tom Clancy, you had all of these games that were tailored towards guys, young guys, and boys. But as time has went on and the gaming industry became more and more popular, and it has drastically dwarfed the music industry and the movie industry and Hollywood, drastically dwarfed. It has also expanded in its demographics as well. It no longer is an industry that only targets young men and boys. It also targets middle-aged people. Sometimes you can catch your mom or your aunt playing Candy Crush or something on her phone. Or you can catch your sister playing Animal Crossing on her Nintendo Switch. And so, as the demographic for games has expanded to be more available to more people, I think that stigma also went away because people are less likely to judge their own behavior. They're more likely to judge other people's behavior. And if now everyone in society is kind of engaging in video games of every demographic and age and gender, then that stigma for it being this thing that only nerds play and only dweebs play kind of starts to dissipate. And it's become more normalized. And in a way, I think that's good because, like I said, inherently there's nothing wrong with video games as a medium. But whether or not these video games are actually adding things to your life, which I think they can in some instances, in some contexts, is going to vary on a case by case basis.